Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the most powerful fleet ever assembled. 500 warships floated in perfect formation at the edge of the Sol system. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering. Each one could destroy entire planets if needed. The fleet had traveled for months to reach this moment. The Hegemony Council had given humanity one final chance to surrender, submit to rule, or face complete destruction. The humans had been given 30 days to decide. Today, those 30 days were over. Walked slowly across the bridge of the Dominion's fist. His officers worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew what was about to happen. This would be the largest military action in hegemony history. When it was finished, humanity would no longer exist. "Status report," ordered his second-in-command. Commander Al looked up from his console. "All ships are in position, Admiral. Long-range sensors show human military vessels retreating behind there. We count approximately 40 ships total in Earth orbit." Nodded. 40 ships. The entire human fleet was smaller than one of his battle groups. What about their outer colonies? Civilian evacuation ships are fleeing toward the inner systems. No military resistance detected. It appears they are abandoning their frontier worlds without a fight. The Admiral felt a moment of disappointment. He had read the intelligence reports about humanity. They had somehow survived the void plague that destroyed the colonies. They had fought off pirate raids and survived in the dangerous frontier regions of space. He had expected them to put up more of a fight. Perhaps the reports about human determination were wrong, he said to himself. Had seen many species surrender when faced with hegemony power. Most were smart enough to know when they were beaten. Humans were supposed to be different. The reports said they were stubborn and refused to give up even when defeat was certain. But looking at his sensors, all he saw was a species running away. The Admiral moved to the main display screen. It showed the Sol system in perfect detail. Earth hung like a blue jewel in the center, surrounded by its small fleet of defenders. The other human worlds were already being abandoned. Mars showed evacuation ships leaving every hour. The mining stations in the asteroid belt had gone silent. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human government," reported the communications officer. "Put it through." A human face appeared on the screen. The man was old with gray hair and tired eyes. "This is President of the United Earth Government. I want to speak with your commander." Stepped forward. "I am Admiral of the Hegemony. Have you decided to accept our terms?" The human president looked directly at him. "I want you to know that we received your ultimatum. We discussed it carefully. And we reject it completely." Was surprised. "You reject it? Do you see my fleet, human? 500 warships. Each one is more powerful than your entire military combined. Surrender now and your people will live as servants of the hegemony. Continue to resist and we will destroy every human world." President's expression did not change. "We know exactly what you offer, slavery or death. We choose neither." "Then you choose extinction." "Maybe, but we choose it freely." The human paused for a moment. "Admiral, let me tell you something about my species. We have a saying, live free or die. Today you will learn what those words really mean." The transmission ended. Stared at the blank screen. He had given these humans every chance to survive. They had chosen death instead. So be it. "All ships prepare for attack," he ordered. "Target the human military vessels first, then their orbital stations. Once space is clear, we will begin bombardment of their worlds." "Sir," Commander Al called out, "sensors are detecting movement in the asteroid belt." Looked at his tactical display. A single contact was moving away from the rocky debris field. "What is it?" "Appears to be a human ship, Admiral. It's very old." The sensor data appeared on the main screen. The ship was ancient by any standard. Its hull was covered in patches and repairs. The design was primitive, probably from humanity's early expansion period. It was tiny compared to even the smallest hegemony vessel. "A museum piece," laughed one of the bridge officers. Studied the readings more carefully. "What class of vessel is this?" "According to our database, it's a frigate, approximately 400 years old. Weapons appear to be kinetic projectile systems and basic energy weapons. No significant threat to our forces." The admiral watched as the ancient ship slowly moved toward his fleet. Was this humanity's final gesture of defiance, sending one old warship against 500 modern ones? "Sir, we're receiving another transmission," the communications officer reported. "From the ship?" "Yes, Admiral." "Put it through." A new face appeared on the screen. This was a human woman, probably in her 60s. Her uniform was different from the president's clothing. Military, but not like anything in their intelligence files. Her eyes were hard and cold. "This is Captain of the United Earth ship Defiant," she said calmly. "You have threatened humanity's children. That was a mistake." Laughter broke out across the bridge. Commander Al could barely contain his amusement. "Admiral, this is ridiculous. One ancient frigate against our entire fleet." Was not laughing. Something about the human captain bothered him. Her voice was too calm, too confident. "Captain, you are outnumbered 500 to 1. Surrender your vessel and you will be allowed to live." The human woman smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Admiral, I don't think you understand the situation. You came here to destroy humanity. You brought 500 ships because you thought that would be enough. It is more than enough." "We'll see." Captain leaned forward in her chair. "I'm going to give you one chance, Admiral. Turn around, leave this system, never come back. Do this and you might live through the day." The bridge erupted in laughter again, even almost smiled. "Captain, you cannot be serious." "I'm always serious when it comes to protecting my people." The transmission ended. Stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he shook his head. Humans were clearly insane. "Destroyer Squadron 7, eliminate that antique. Let's end this farce and begin the real battle." "Yes, Admiral." As his orders were relayed across the fleet, watched the old human ship on his tactical display. In a few minutes, it would be nothing but scattered debris. Then the real work of destroying humanity could begin. He had no idea that he had just made the worst mistake of his military career. Captain watched the enemy destroyer move away from the main fleet. She could see it on her tactical screen, growing larger as it approached the Defiant. Her crew was completely silent. They all knew what was about to happen. "Captain," called out her weapons officer, Lieutenant Torres. "Enemy destroyer has locked weapons on us. They're charging plasma cannons." "Acknowledged," replied calmly. She had been in situations like this before, many times. "How are our systems?" Chief Engineer looked up from his station. "All systems green, Captain. The old girl is ready for whatever you need her to do." Nodded. The Defiant might look ancient and broken, but appearances could be deceiving. She had spent 40 years working on this ship. Every bolt, every wire, every piece of equipment had been carefully chosen and tested in real combat. "Captain," Torres called again. "The destroyer is hailing us. They want us to surrender." "Ignore them," ordered. "Continue on our current course." On the main screen, she could see the destroyer growing larger. It was a beautiful ship in its own way. Smooth lines, elegant curves, and enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Everything about it screamed advanced technology and superior engineering. The Defiant looked like junk compared to it. First Officer, Commander Sarah Mitchell, moved to stand beside her captain's chair. Sarah was younger then, but she had served on the Defiant for 15 years. She understood what the ship could really do. "Captain, are you sure about this?" Sarah asked quietly. "Maybe we should try to contact Earth. Let them know we need backup." Shook her head. "There is no backup, Sarah. This is it, just us. Against 500 ships." We'll see how many we actually need to face. Touched a control on her chair. Attention all hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage the enemy. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember that this ship has never lost a battle and we're not going to start today. She closed the channel and looked at her crew. There were only 12 people aboard the Defiant, all volunteers, all veterans, all people who understood what was at stake. "Tors, prepare the surprise package," she ordered. Lieutenant Tors smiled. "Already charged and ready, Captain." Had recruited her crew very carefully. Each person had served in the worst conflicts humanity had ever faced. Tors had fought in the Void War, had survived the Titan Uprising. Mitchell had been with during the raid. They had all seen what happened when humanity was pushed to its limits. They had all learned the same lesson. Humans might not be the strongest or the fastest or the species in the galaxy, but they were definitely the most stubborn. "Enemy destroyer is in range," Tors reported. "They're beginning their attack run." Watch the tactical display. The destroyer was moving in a standard attack pattern, exactly what their training manuals would tell them to do when facing a smaller, weaker opponent. Come in fast, hit hard, move away before the enemy could respond. It was a good strategy against most opponents. "Captain, they're firing," called out. Brilliant blue plasma beams shot across space toward the Defiant. Didn't flinch or try to dodge. She simply waited. The plasma beams hit the old frigate's hull and scattered. The energy spread across the ship's surface like water hitting an umbrella. Within seconds, the attack was over. The Defiant continued on course, completely undamaged. Could imagine the confusion on the destroyer's bridge. Their weapons officer was probably running diagnostics, wondering what went wrong. Their captain was probably demanding an explanation. "Tors, return fire," she ordered calmly. "With pleasure, Captain." The Defiant fired a single projectile at the destroyer. It wasn't a missile or an energy beam. It was a simple metal rod, fired at incredible speed by magnetic accelerators. To anyone watching, it looked like the most primitive weapon possible, just a piece of metal hurled through space. The destroyer's captain probably thought the same thing. His shields could easily stop kinetic projectiles. Every ship in the galaxy had defenses against such simple weapons. The metal rod punched through the destroyer's shields like they weren't even there. It tore through the ship's armor plating and buried itself deep in the vessel's core. Secondary explosions began almost immediately. Within 30 seconds, the destroyer was dead in space. Its engines were offline, its weapons were silent, and its crew was frantically trying to keep life support working. Watch the results on her tactical screen. 1 shot, 1 kill, just like always. "Captain," Tors said with a grin, "the enemy fleet is hailing us again." "I bet they are, put them through." Admiral's face appeared on the screen. He looked confused and angry. "Captain, what just happened? What did you do to my ship?" Leaned back in her chair. "I defended myself, Admiral. Your destroyer attacked me," I responded. "That's impossible. Our scans showed you had only primitive weapons, chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles." "You scanned correctly." "Then how did you penetrate our shields? How did you disable a modern warship with 1 shot?" Smiled. "Admiral, let me explain something about humanity. We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've learned a few things along the way. One lesson we learned very well. Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ways." She paused to let that sink in. "Your shields are designed to stop modern weapons, energy beams, guided missiles, things like that. But a simple piece of metal moving fast enough. Your computers don't even recognize it as a threat." Stared at her. That's ridiculous." "Is it? Your ship is floating dead in space right now. Mine is still coming toward your fleet, which approach seems more ridiculous." The Admiral's expression grew darker. "You destroyed 1 ship with a trick. You cannot defeat 500 vessels with tricks. Maybe not, agreed. But I don't need to defeat 500 ships, Admiral. I just need to defeat you. You're insane. Probably, but I'm also the person standing between you and Earth, and that's all that really matters. Cut the transmission and looked at her crew. Well, people, that got their attention. Now let's see what they do next. Commander Mitchell checked her sensor readings. Captain, the main fleet is moving. Looks like they're sending a full squadron this time. Nodded, 12 ships instead of 1. The enemy was learning. How are our modifications holding up? Perfect, Captain. The adaptive plating is working exactly as designed. Our stealth systems are online and ready. And the weapons? Well, the weapons are hungry. Laughed. After 40 years together, she and her crew had developed their own way of talking about combat. Other people might think they were crazy. But then, other people had never fought the kind of battles they had fought. Tors, prepare the full arsenal, she ordered. It's time to show these aliens what an old ship can really do. Aye, Captain. All weapon systems online and ready. Watched the squadron of enemy ships approaching her position. They were coming in a standard attack formation, just like their training told them to do. They probably thought 12 ships would be more than enough to handle one old frigate. They were about to learn otherwise. The Defiant had been fighting battles when most of these alien ships were still blueprints on some engineer's drawing board, and her crew had learned their lessons in real combat, not in simulators or classrooms. Now it was time for a practical demonstration of human military tactics. All right, people, said calmly, let's go to work. The 12 ships moved toward the Defiant in perfect formation. Admiral watched from his flagship as Squadron 7 spread out into attack positions. This time, he was taking no chances. Instead of one destroyer, he was sending cruisers and heavy frigates, ships with better armor and stronger weapons. Admiral, Commander Al reported, Squadron 7 is in position. They are ready to engage the human vessel. Nodded. Tell them to be careful. That ship has some kind of trick weapons, but 12 ships should be more than enough to handle one old frigate. On the bridge of the Defiant, watched the enemy squadron approach. She could see their formation on her tactical display. It was a standard pincer movement, designed to attack from multiple angles at once. Good tactics against most opponents. Captain Tors called out, enemy ships are spreading out. They're trying to surround us. Let them, replied. Activate the chameleon protocol. Chief Engineer's hands moved over his controls. Chameleon protocol active. We are now invisible to their sensors. Smiled as she watched the enemy ships suddenly stop moving. Their formation broke apart as each captain tried to figure out where the Defiant had gone. On their sensors, the human ship had simply vanished. Commander Mitchell looked up from her station. Captain, they're scanning everything in the area. They don't understand how we disappeared. Of course they don't, said. They think stealth technology has to be complicated. Energy dampeners, quantum scramblers, things like that. They never considered the simple approach. The Defiant's stealth system wasn't based on advanced alien technology. It was much simpler than that. The ship's hull was covered in adaptive plating that could change color and texture to match whatever was behind it, like a chameleon changing its skin to blend in with a tree branch. It was old technology, primitive by galactic standards, but it worked. Tors, target the lead cruiser, ordered. Prepare the harpoon. Lieutenant Tors grinned. Harpoon loaded and ready, Captain. The harpoon was personal favorite weapon. It looked like something from humanity's ancient whaling ships. A long metal spike attached to a strong cable. Most aliens would laugh at such a primitive device. They wouldn't be laughing for long. Fire commanded. The harpoon shot out from the Defiant's hull, moving too fast for the enemy sensors to track. It punched through the cruiser's shields and buried itself deep in the ship's armor. Instantly, the cable went tight. Reel them in, Tors. The winch system activated, pulling the enemy cruiser toward the Defiant. The alien captain probably didn't understand what was happening. His ship was being dragged through space by what looked like a fishing line. "Captain," reported, "the harpoon is in position, ready for the surprise." Nodded, "Do it." Electricity flowed down the cable from the Defiant to the enemy cruiser. Not enough to destroy the ship, but more than enough to overload its systems. Within seconds, the alien vessel was dead in space. Its weapons were offline, its shields were down, and its engines were silent. "One down," said calmly, 11 to go. The other enemy ships were still searching for the Defiant. They had seen their companion ship get disabled, but they couldn't see what had done it. Could imagine the panic on their bridges. Fighting an enemy you couldn't see was every captain's worst nightmare. "Tors, load the virus torpedo," she ordered. "Already loaded, Captain. Target." Studied her tactical display. The enemy ships were bunching together, trying to protect each other. It was good thinking, but it also made them vulnerable to the right kind of attack. The heavy frigate on the left, the one that's trying to coordinate the search. "Aye, Captain, virus torpedo away." The torpedo looked like any other missile as it flew toward the enemy ship. The frigate's defenses tracked it and opened fire. Point defense lasers tried to destroy it before it could reach the target. But the torpedo wasn't designed to explode on impact. Instead, it attached itself to the frigate's hull like a parasite. Within seconds, it had burned through the outer armor and connected to the ship's computer system. The virus activated immediately. It was a simple program, really. It just told every system on the ship to shut down at the same time. Engines, weapons, life support, communications, everything went offline at once. The heavy frigate stopped dead in space, as helpless as a ship made of stone. "Two down," Tors reported happily. Was already planning her next move. The remaining enemy ships were getting desperate. They were firing at shadows, hopping to hit the invisible Defiant by accident. It was wasteful and dangerous, but she understood their frustration. "Bring us around behind that destroyer, the one that's firing randomly." "Course laid in, Captain." The Defiant moved silently through space, still invisible to enemy sensors. Watched as the destroyer continued to fire at empty space. The ship's captain was probably young and inexperienced. Older officers would have pulled back and called for backup by now. Youth and inexperience could be useful sometimes. They made enemies predictable. "Tors, prepare the magnetic mine." "Ready, Captain." The magnetic mine was another simple weapon. It looked like a small metal box with magnets on one side. Had got the idea from studying ancient naval warfare on Earth. Human sailors had used similar devices to sink enemy ships for centuries. "Drop it on their hull." The mine floated out from the Defiant and attached itself to the destroyer's hull. The enemy ship never noticed the small addition to their armor plating. Why would they? It was just another piece of debris floating in space. Waited 30 seconds, then activated the mine remotely. The explosion tore a hole in the destroyer's engine section. Not enough to destroy the ship completely, but more than enough to cripple it. The vessel began to spin out of control as its remaining engines fired randomly. "Three down," said, getting easier. Commander Mitchell looked at her captain with admiration. "How did you know they wouldn't detect the mine?" "Because they're looking for advanced weapons," explained. "Energy signatures, guided missiles, quantum torpedoes. They're not scanning for simple explosive devices. Their computers are programmed to ignore anything that primitive." It was the same mistake the destroyer captain had made earlier. They were so focused on defending against modern weapons that they had forgotten about older threats. Keyed her communication system. "Admiral, this is Captain." The alien admiral's face appeared on screen immediately. He looked angry and confused. "Captain, where are you? My ships can't find you." "I'm right here, Admiral, fighting your squadron." That's impossible. You disappeared from our sensors. Laughed. We didn't disappear. We just turned on our camouflage. It's an old trick. We learned it from watching lizards on Earth. Stared at her. Lizards. Small animals that change color to hide from predators. Very effective technique. We just applied it to spacecraft design. The Admiral's expression grew darker. You've disabled 3 of my ships with primitive tricks. That won't work forever. Maybe not, agreed. But it's working right now, and right now is all that matters. She cut the transmission and turned back to her crew. The remaining 9 enemy ships were regrouping, forming a defensive circle. They had finally figured out that fighting an invisible enemy required different tactics. They're learning, Commander Mitchell observed. Nodded. Good. I was starting to think they were all complete amateurs. How are our systems holding up? Perfect, Captain. All weapons ready, all defenses online. The old girl is enjoying herself. Looked at her tactical display. 9 ships left in the squadron, and nearly 500 more waiting in the main fleet. Most captains would be feeling overwhelmed at this point. But wasn't most captains. She was a veteran of the Void War, the Titan Uprising, and a dozen other conflicts that most people had never heard of. She had learned to fight when humanity was young and desperate and surrounded by enemies. She had learned that the best way to win a battle wasn't to have the biggest guns or the fastest ships. The best way to win was to be more creative than your opponent. And humans had always been very creative when it came to finding new ways to fight. All right, people, she said calmly. Time to show them what happens when you bring 9 ships to fight 1 human vessel. Tor's, prepare the swarm protocol. Tor's eyes lit up. Swarm protocol, Captain, are you sure? I'm sure. Let's give Admiral something really interesting to think about. Settled back in her command chair and watched the enemy ships on her display. They thought they were hunting her. They had no idea that they were about to become the prey. Touched a control on her command chair. Aegis, are you ready? A calm electronic voice filled the bridge. Always ready, Captain. All tactical data is current and available. Commander Mitchell looked confused. Captain, who is Aegis? Smiled. Aegis is our secret weapon, Sarah. The real reason why the Defiant has never lost a battle. She paused for a moment. Aegis, introduce yourself to the crew. I am the Aegis Tactical Intelligence System, the voice explained. I contain the complete military history of humanity. Every battle, every strategy, every victory and defeat from the last 400 years. I have studied the fighting methods of 67 different alien species. I know how they think, how they move, and how they die. Lieutenant Torres whistled softly. Captain, you never told us the ship had an AI. Not just any AI, corrected. Aegis is the memory of our entire species. When humans fought the Void War, we lost entire fleets, but we learned from every loss. When we battled the pirates we lost colonies, but we remembered every lesson. When we faced the Titan Uprising, we lost cities, but we never forgot what those losses taught us. She gestured toward the main screen where the enemy ships were still searching for the invisible Defiant. Aegis has fought the before, not this exact fleet but their people, their tactics, their weapons, their weaknesses. Captain, Aegis said, I have analyzed the enemy squadron. They are using standard formation Delta 7, as described in captured military manuals from the conflict. I recommend counterstrike pattern Omega. Nodded. Do it. Suddenly, the Defiant appeared on enemy sensors again, but not in one location. The ship seemed to be everywhere at once. Dozens of identical copies surrounded the confused squadron. Holographic projectors, explained to the younger crew members. We're showing them what they expect to see while hiding our real position. The enemy ships opened fire immediately. Energy beams crossed space in every direction as they tried to hit the multiple targets, but every shot passed through empty space. The holograms flickered and reformed, making it impossible to tell which target was real. "Tors, activate the swarm," ordered. From hidden compartments all over the Defiant's hull, hundreds of small drones launched into space. Each one was barely larger than a person's hand. They looked harmless, almost like toys. The captains ignored them completely. They were focused on the holographic ships, trying to find the real target among all the false ones. That was their second mistake. The drones moved in perfect coordination, guided by Aegis's tactical intelligence. They attached themselves to the enemy ships like insects landing on flowers. Within seconds, every vessel in the squadron had dozens of the small devices clinging to their hulls. "Aegis, execute Swarm Protocol 7, commanded. "Swarm Protocol 7 initiated," the AI replied. The drones activated simultaneously. Each one began cutting through the enemy ship's armor plating with focused laser beams. They were too small for the ship's weapons to target effectively, and there were too many of them to stop manually. Within minutes, the drones had cut through critical systems on every enemy vessel: engine coolant lines, power conduits, communications arrays, life support systems. The ships began shutting down one by one as their vital systems failed. 9 ships disabled, Tors reported. "No casualties, but they're all dead in space." Nodded with satisfaction. "Recall the drones and swarm. Time to have another chat with the Admiral." The small devices detached from the crippled enemy ships and flew back to the Defiant. Within minutes, they had disappeared into hidden compartments, ready to be used again. Opened a channel to the flagship. Admiral's face appeared on the screen. He looked shocked and frightened. 12 ships, he said quietly. "You disabled 12 of my best ships without taking any damage yourself." "Actually, it was 13, corrected. "Don't forget the destroyer from earlier." "How?" demanded. "How is this possible? You're using primitive weapons, simple tactics, nothing advanced or sophisticated." Leaned forward in her chair. "Admiral, let me tell you something about humanity. We've been fighting wars since before we discovered fire. We've fought with sticks and stones, with swords and spears, with gunpowder and nuclear weapons. We've battled on every world we've ever colonized, and we've learned something from every single fight." She paused to let that sink in. "Your species developed space travel and stopped learning how to fight. You built bigger guns and faster ships, and you thought that made you superior warriors. But warfare isn't about having the best technology. It's about understanding your enemy better than they understand you." "You cannot defeat my entire fleet with ancient tactics," protested. "Can I?" smiled. "Aegis, how many fleet actions do we have in our database?" 47 major engagements, Captain, including the battles at Station, the Vega raids, and the assault on Colony." "And how many of those battles did they lose?" 31 losses, 12 victories, 4 tactical withdrawals." Looked back at Admiral. "You see, Admiral, we've been studying your people for decades. We know how you think, we know how you fight, we know your weaknesses better than you do." His expression grew angry. "You're bluffing. Those are just numbers, combat records. They don't mean anything in a real battle." "Don't they? Aegis, show the Admiral what we learned from the Battle of Station." The main screen changed to show a tactical display. Enemy ship positions appeared, along with movement patterns and weapons deployment data. "Station 2387, Aegis began. "Task Force Epsilon attacked the Human Research Facility with 62 ships. Standard hegemony tactics, overwhelming firepower applied to fixed positions. The attack succeeded, but at a cost of 18 ships destroyed and 24 damaged." The display shifted, showing new information. Analysis revealed 3 critical weaknesses in fleet coordination. First, command ships always position themselves in the center rear of the formation. Second, when surprised, captains default to defensive postures rather than aggressive action. Third, Hegemony doctrine prioritizes ship preservation over mission completion when losses exceed 15%. Watched Admiral's face as Aegis continued the briefing. She could see him recognizing the accuracy of the analysis. Every point was correct. Every weakness was real. Your current fleet displays all three patterns, Aegis concluded. Probability of mission success if current tactics continue, 12%. Stared at the screen for a long moment. You're saying that one old ship can defeat 500 modern warships because you have better information. Not just information, corrected. Experience. Every human who ever died fighting your people taught us something. Every ship we lost showed us a weakness in your tactics. Every defeat made us stronger. She stood up from her command chair. Admiral, your people fight to conquer. That's why you're here. You want to add human worlds to your empire, but humans don't fight to conquer. We fight to survive. And there's a big difference between those two motivations. What difference? His expression grew cold. When you're fighting to conquer, you can afford to lose. You can retreat and try again later. When you're fighting to survive, you can't afford to lose even once. You have to win or die trying. She paused for effect. Admiral, my people sent me here in a 400-year-old ship with a crew of 12 volunteers. We're not expecting to conquer your fleet. We're not planning to capture your worlds. We're here to make you understand that attacking humanity is too expensive to be worth the effort. 13 ships is hardly my entire fleet. No, agreed, but this is just the beginning. Aegis, show him the real surprise. The tactical display changed again. This time, it showed the entire fleet formation. But now there were new contacts appearing all around them. Dozens of human ships materializing from what had seemed like empty space. Admiral said calmly, I'd like you to meet the rest of the Earth Defense Fleet. They've been waiting for you. Admiral stared at the display in horror. The human ships were everywhere, surrounding his fleet in a perfect trap. Ships that made the ancient Defiant look like a toy. Vessels armed with weapons he couldn't even identify. How many? He whispered. Enough, replied. More than enough. But Admiral, I'm going to give you one more chance. The same chance I gave you before. Turn around. Leave this system. Never come back. Do this now and you might live to see your again. Looked at his tactical officer. How many ships are we detecting? Over 300, Admiral. All unknown designs, all heavily armed. The Admiral closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, he looked like he had aged 10 years. Captain, what guarantee do I have that you'll let my fleet leave? Smiled. You have my word as a human being. We don't want to destroy you, Admiral. We just want you to go home and tell your people what you learned here today. And what did we learn? You learned that humanity is under the protection of creatures who remember every battle, learn from every mistake, and never give up fighting for what they believe in. You learned that attacking us is a very bad idea. Cut the transmission and turned to her crew. Well, people, I think our work here is done. Set course for Earth. It's time to go home. As the Defiant turned toward the blue planet in the center of the system, allowed herself to relax for the first time in hours. Behind them, the fleet was already beginning to retreat. The message had been delivered. An admiral would make sure that message reached every corner of the galaxy. Watched the fleet retreating on her tactical display. 500 ships, the most powerful force ever assembled by the hegemony, were running away from human space as fast as their engines could carry them. Captain, Commander Mitchell said quietly, they're really leaving. Of course they are, replied. Admiral is a smart man. He knows when he's beaten. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his weapons station. Captain, should we pursue them? Make sure they actually leave the system. Shook her head. No need. They won't be back. And even if they do come back, they won't make the same mistakes twice. Chief Engineer was monitoring the enemy fleet's withdrawal. Captain, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. Looks like Admiral is calling for immediate retreat to their home territory. Good, said. The faster they spread the word, the better. But wasn't finished yet. She had delivered her message to Admiral, but the Admiral wasn't the only one who needed to hear it. The entire galaxy needed to understand what had happened here today. Tours, open a channel to all ships in the system, human and alien both. Channel open, Captain. Stood up from her command chair and faced the main screen. When she spoke, her voice was calm and confident. This is Captain of the United Earth ship Defiant. I'm speaking to all vessels currently in the Sol system, and to anyone else who might be listening to these communications. She paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts. This message would be recorded and transmitted across the galaxy. Every species, every government, every military force would eventually hear these words. Today, the hegemony sent 500 warships to destroy humanity. They came here believing that superior technology and overwhelming numbers would guarantee their victory. They were wrong. Began walking slowly around the bridge as she spoke. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, making sure the transmission was being recorded properly. The hegemony fleet has been defeated by one ship, one old, obsolete frigate with a crew of 12 people. We didn't defeat them with advanced weapons or superior technology. We defeated them with something much more powerful, human experience. She stopped in front of the main screen and looked directly into the camera. For 400 years, humanity has been fighting for survival in a galaxy that doesn't particularly want us here. We've been attacked by pirates, invaded by alien armies, and threatened by diseases that could wipe out entire worlds. We've lost battles, lost ships, lost entire colonies. His voice grew stronger as she continued. But we learned from every loss. We remembered every mistake. We studied every enemy who ever fought us, and we figured out how to beat them, not with bigger guns or faster ships, but with better tactics and deeper understanding. The camera pulled back to show the entire bridge. Crew continued their work, but they were also listening to every word their captain spoke. The ship you see behind me is 400 years old. Her hull is patched with metal from a dozen different worlds. Her weapons are primitive by galactic standards. Her crew is small and her technology is outdated. But she has never lost a battle because she carries something that can't be bought or built or stolen. Gestured toward her crew. She carries the accumulated knowledge of every human who ever fought for freedom, every tactical innovation, every strategic breakthrough, every hard-learned lesson from 4 centuries of warfare. The Defiant isn't just a ship. She's a library of human military experience. She moved back to the center of the bridge. Today, Admiral learned what it means to fight humanity. He discovered that we don't just build ships to attack our enemies. We build ships to survive. We design weapons not just to kill, but to adapt. We train our crews not just to follow orders, but to think. His expression grew more serious. The fleet retreated today because Admiral realized something important. Fighting humanity isn't just expensive in terms of ships and lives. It's expensive in terms of time and effort and resources. Every battle teaches us something new about our enemies. Every defeat makes us stronger. She paused to let that concept settle in. Other species fight until they achieve their objectives. Humans fight until there's nobody left to fight. Other species develop new technologies to overcome their enemies. Humans develop new ways to use old technologies. Other species forget their defeats and repeat their mistakes. Humans remember everything. Walked over to Lieutenant Tor's station and put her hand on his shoulder. The young man you see here fought in the Void War when he was barely out of school. The woman at the engineering station survived the Titan uprising that killed 3 million people. My first officer has been through more battles than most admirals ever see. She moved back to face the camera directly. We are 12 people on one old ship, but we represent something much larger than ourselves. We represent the accumulated experience of every human who ever picked up a weapon to defend their home, every soldier who ever died protecting their family, every captain who ever chose to fight impossible odds rather than surrender. His voice became quieter but more intense. Admiral came here today with 500 ships because he thought that would be enough to destroy humanity. He left with the understanding that 5,000 ships might not be enough, not because we have better weapons, but because we have better reasons to fight. She stopped speaking for a moment and looked around her bridge. Her crew had served with her for years, through battles that most people never heard about. They understood what she was trying to say. This message is being transmitted on all frequencies and in all known languages. It will reach every corner of the galaxy within a few months. I want to make sure everyone understands what happened here today. Face the camera one final time. Humanity is a young species. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the most technologically advanced, but we are the most stubborn. We never give up, we never stop learning, and we never forget an enemy who threatens our children. Her voice grew cold and hard. Today, the hegemony threatened Earth and our colonies. They brought 500 ships to enforce their ultimatum. We responded with 12 people in a 400-year-old frigate. Smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. We are still here. They are running away. That should tell you everything you need to know about the wisdom of threatening humanity. She gestured toward the retreating alien fleet. Admiral's ships are welcome to leave our territory and never return. Any other species that wants to threaten human worlds is welcome to try their luck against us. But understand this, we will remember every ship you send against us. We will learn from every tactic you use, and we will find ways to defeat you that you never imagined possible. His expression softened slightly. We don't want to be anyone's enemy. We're willing to trade peacefully, share technology, and cooperate on projects that benefit everyone. But we will not submit to threats, and we will not abandon our colonies. Anyone who attacks humanity will discover that we are much more dangerous than we appear. She moved to her command chair and sat down. This is Captain of the Defiant, transmitting from Sol System. Our message is complete. Any questions can be directed to the Earth government through normal diplomatic channels. Cut the transmission and looked at her crew. Well, people, I think we've made our point. Set course for Earth. It's time to go home and get some rest. As the ancient frigate turned toward the blue planet at the center of the system, allowed herself to feel satisfied with the day's work. The galaxy would be talking about this battle for decades to come. More importantly, they would be thinking very carefully before they decided to threaten humanity again. The Defiant had done her job. The message was delivered and the precedent was set. Earth's children were under protection, and that protection came with teeth. Looked at the tactical display one more time. The fleet was already beyond the edge of the system, still accelerating away from human space. Admiral would have an interesting report to write when he got home. She wondered what the Hegemony Council would think when they learned that their greatest military expedition had been defeated by one old ship and 12 people who refused to give up. Smiled and settled back in her chair. It would be interesting to find out. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, humanity had won another battle in their long fight for survival, and the Defiant had added one more victory to her 400-year record. Some things never changed, and sometimes that was exactly what the galaxy needed to hear.